Hey guys, I am back and we are in Genesis 6. This is still the first book of the Bible, sixth chapter. If you are following along in order, you'll notice that Genesis 5 we skipped. My focus in this is to follow the story. So I'm going to reference some information from Genesis 5, but I'm not going to kind of go through it in great detail. Genesis 5 gives us an overview of the span of the descendants, the legacy of from Adam to Noah. And we pick up with the start of Noah's story here in Genesis 6. So there is son after son after son after son after son until we get to Noah. And we start from Adam, or the man in the garden, that goes down through his sons. Seth, who is the son that comes after the Cain and Abel debacle. But it goes through that lineage and it kind of breaks down how we get to Noah and how many generations have passed between Adam, or the man in the garden, and Noah. And so in Genesis 6, we're going to pick up and we're going to go through the entire chapter. We're going to take it all the way down to verse 22. And so in the beginning of Genesis 6, it talks about people multiplying on the earth. We are getting populous. We are having people after people, and now the population is beginning to expand. And as the population is expanding, we are expanding in ways that God knew was going to happen, but He gave us the option to not let it happen. And so it says that He is seeing that people are taking wives and that they're growing, they're having children, they're starting families, there's marriage, there's all types of things that are going on. So these systems that He put into place are continuing to move in the way that He directed them to. And in verse 3, God said, I'm not going to be with them forever. They're mortals. So I'm going to shorten their lifespans because they're mortals. And I don't want them out here acting a fool. They got all this knowledge of good and evil. And so now they're exercising some of this free will. They're exercising some of this knowledge of some things that I would rather not see. And so He shortens the lifespan to 120 years. There are people who still live beyond that time, much like the average life expectancy currently is in the 70s, but you see people in their 80s and 90s who still have very active lives. And so in verse 4, it talks about the Nephilim. And it says that these Nephilim are in the earth. And they are the children of daughters on earth and angels. So these would be like fallen angels is the understanding. So these would be like the angels that fell from heaven. It talks about when you get into Satan being cast out of heaven, that he took a third of the angels with him. So he had a good number of people that went with him, not as much as God has. He's not going to win that fight. But He pulled some with him. And so while they're cast out of heaven, they are on earth and they are appearing as men. And they are getting married and starting families and having kids. And so these children they have, because they are kind of not completely just human, they are renowned warriors. They are bold and larger in size and can take a couple hits. And so that is what the Nephilim are. We're going to talk about it some more. Just stay tuned. So, in verse 5, it says, the Lord saw that wickedness. He saw them and He said that their every thought, their very hearts are evil continually. Like, it's just all bad. It's not even like, they're good on Sundays, and sometimes around Wednesday they start to fall off, and by Saturday they doing bad, but they get it back together on Sunday. It says continually evil. And He said He was sorry. It says that in verse 6 that the Lord was sorry, that He repented. Repentant just means you have a change of heart, mind, action. And He was like, why'd I do this? Why'd I do this? I knew they was going to act a fool when I put them down there and I let them kind of take care of themselves. I knew they was going to act a fool, and here they are acting a fool. Very similar to the way a parent is when you send your kids in their room to play and they get quiet and you go look and they have smeared. They got crayon on the walls. They done markered on the bed. They done ripped pages out of books. I knew you was going to act a fool when I sent you in here, but I was hoping that you weren't. I knew it, but I was hoping that you weren't going to do it. And so in verse 7 say, you know what? I'm about to wipe them off of earth. I'm going to get rid of them. I'm going to get rid of them. I'm going to get rid of them animals that they're corrupting, because animals are under the authority of man. We saw that in the garden, that they would come and they would be named, and each one was presented, and that there was no threat to the man and the woman in the garden. There was no threat. When Cain was sent out into the land away from his parents because of what he had done, he was not concerned about being attacked by a lion. He said, the people going to kill me. So at this point, these animals are being trained to participate in foolishness. And while we're like, how would an animal be trained like that? We have dogs that have been trained to fight. They train chickens to fight. Like there's you can harbor these kind of instincts in these animals, and you create these situations. And so God was like, look, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna start over. Ball the whole thing up, throw it away, I'm gonna start over. This was you're acting a fool. I'm gonna start over. And in verse 8, it says, Noah found favor in the sight of the Lord, or found grace. Noah was a righteous man. He was blameless in his generation. This man said, I don't care what anybody else is doing. I'm going to serve the Lord. I don't care what anybody else is up to. I don't care how they live their lives. I'm going to follow the rules that I was given, and I'm going to serve the Lord. And he taught his sons to do the same thing. So he has 3 sons, and these 3 sons were righteous with him, and they went with him. So in verses 11 and 12, God talks about how corrupt things have begun, how the world was starting to be corrupted. The earth itself was starting to be corrupted because of the foolishness of these people. And so God reaches out to Noah, has a conversation with him, and said, look, I'm going to kill everything. Everything and everybody, they got to go. I'm going to start over. I'm scratch. It's over. But because of your righteousness, because of you and your desire to walk for me and with me, in spite of what your neighbors are doing, in spite of what the rest of the world is doing, I'm going to use you, and I'm going to save your family, and I'm going to save a remnant of these animals so that this earth can be repopulated. And so here are the instructions on how to do this, because I'm not going to just make it rain all over the world and keep you in a safe, dry spot in the middle. I need you to build an ark. And I'm going to tell you now, do it the way I tell you to do it, or else it's not going to withstand. We understand now that we have to do things the way the Lord instructs us, or it's not going to work. And so he gives him the instructions about how to build this ark. There's a specific wood that needs to be used. There is a specific amount of rooms, a specific amount of pens for cattle and things like that. And then once you make it out of this, I want you to cover it inside and out with pitch. We got to make it waterproof. We're going to make this real. These seams are going to be tight. This wood is going to be sound, but I want you to waterproof it, because I know, even when you don't, that there's going to take a little extra. So it goes through how he's going to build this ark, how large it's going to be, how many pins it's going to be, how what the height is, what the width is, what the length is, how big this is. And he spends years building this. So he builds this boat, and then it says in verse 16, make a roof. So it's not just a boat with an opening and you got a little hole at the bottom for things, but literally I want you to make a roof on top. We're going to completely seal this all the way up. Your God is going to live into this sealed in place. And there's going to be a door in its side, and you're going to have decks. So this is like the world's first cruise ship. We about to load this thing up, and we are going to go out on the waters. And then God said, when you do it, for my part, here's what I'm going to do. Once you do your part, I'm going to bring a flood of waters on the earth to destroy every flesh that breathes life. I'm taking everything out. Everything alive on earth is going to die. Everything left on this ground is going to die. And I'm going to establish a covenant with you. I'm going to make you a promise. In verse 18, I'm going to make you a promise, Noah, that if you come into the ark, you build it the way I tell you to do, you come into this ark, I will spare you, your sons, and your wives. So it's him, his 3 sons, and then each of them have a wife. So there's 4 wives. There's 8 people that are going to survive this flood. And he said, I'm also going to make sure that 2 of every living thing comes in. I want you to keep them male and female. And he gives him additional instructions on this. He said, bring in food that you need, store it up. Store it up. The food that these animals are going to need, store it up. I want you to go bulk shopping. I want you to hit Costco. I want you to do all of this that you're supposed to do so that it's all there and it's ready to go and you're prepared for this. And Noah did what God said. And that's important for us to understand that Noah did what God said. He didn't remix it. He didn't change it. He didn't decide, well, this is a lot and I don't know how long it's going to take me. And I don't know what's up. And I got more questions, God. He just did what God told him to do. He followed the instructions that he had. He didn't focus on the instructions that he didn't have. Like, where is this rain coming from? Like, how am I supposed to get the animals in here? Do I have to go catch lions myself? Or are they going to show up? Like, he didn't ask those questions. He did what God told him to do and he waited for the Lord to do the rest. Now, as we go into chapter 8, I'm going to hit just some highlights on it because I want to discuss the actual flood itself separately. So, when we start in chapter 8, verse 1, God tells Noah, go into the ark, get you and your whole house, and get in this ark. And I want you to take with you 7 pairs of all clean animals. He asked him to bring in additional clean animals, males and their mates, and bring in a pair of animals that are not clean. So, what we have to remember is unclean animals are not eaten. They're not sacrificed. So their life is a little different. We don't need as many. They have time to repopulate and have litters and have, kids and babies and things like that are going to be a little bit different than our clean animals. Our clean animals are made for sacrifice. Our clean animals are made for food or used for food and sacrifice. So we need 7 pairs because some of these you're going to eat, some of these you're going to sacrifice. And so in the time that it takes for them to have their birthing cycle and have more children and have more, baby animals, then, that time frame, we need to have a few extra prepared for sacrifice and food when necessary. And so he talked about bringing in the birds. He talked about bringing in the beasts of the field. And it says in verse 4 that in 7 days I will send rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. And every living thing that I've made will be blotted out. I'm going to destroy it all. Every living thing that's left outside of this ark is going to be destroyed. Animals, trees, plants, people, all of this is all going to be gone. And in verse 5, it says that Noah did all that the Lord commanded him. So what I would like to do right now is stop. We're going to attack this next because I want to talk about the flood as a whole, okay? So I'm going to leave those remaining verses because they start to talk about, this is basically a recap on how they got into the ark, and so I can deal with that in the next video. But for this one, what I want us to understand is, first, people like to talk about their hearts. God knows my heart. God knows my heart. And I pray that when you say that, you truly consider what it is that you're saying. Because yes, God does know your heart. He knows every evil intention. He knows every terrible thought. He knows every evil, angry, sad, mad, depressed feeling that's inside of there. He knows it. So what I would rather us do is just be repentant. Not, well, the Lord knows my heart when you do something and somebody call you out on it. He know I ain't mean to hurt nobody, but you did. So like, let's just practice repentance and let's just be like, hey guys, I'm very sorry I said that. I'm very sorry I did that because I know that it hurt you. And it doesn't matter what my intention was, because what you're not saying is God knows my intent. You're saying God knows my heart and your heart is filthy. It says it right. It says it right early on in here that their hearts were evil continually. The other thing is that Noah followed instructions. God gave him very specific instructions on how to build an ark. He gave him very specific instructions on what to do, what to bring in, how to bring it in, where to put stuff. And if he followed these instructions correctly, he would be protected. But if he did not, if he differed, if he veered, if he decided, we need some windows, it's going to be dark in here, I don't really want to have lions on the boat. Like, if he had done any of those things, then the course would be different for him, and then he would not have been saved. I'm sure about my craftsmanship, so I don't gotta put tar or pitch all over this. I don't have to waterproof it because I know my seals are tight. God didn't ask you to know your seals. He asked you to do it the way he said he was going to do it. So he did those things, and the animals came to him, and he created spaces for them. He was able to bring them into the ark. Therefore, his three sons, and each of their wives, so there are four guys and four women, and these eight people were able to be on this ark and protected and safe during the flood that was going to last. So it was going to rain for 40 days and 40 nights straight. And so in the next video, we will pick up and we will discuss how the flood actually went, how long it lasted, how long it was before they were able to come off the ark, and how life started and went after that. So that's our next video. But until then, you guys, be blessed. Have a great one.